Everybody, take your seats. So, in my first talk today, we talked about why secular movies, secular art done by pagans and liberals is bad. And today, right now, we're going to talk about why Christian movies are so terrible. And just raise your hand if you think that most Christian movies you watch are pretty bad. So it's not really a controversial subject, you would think, to be able to say that Christian movies are terrible. But the question is, have you ever wondered why your Christian movies are really terrible? They don't study theology. The theology is weak. That makes a huge difference, especially. But we're going to get into a lot of those reasons. Go ahead.
They're trying to make statements, not make art.
Yes. But so is secular world. Yeah.
The story sucks, and it's not. Some are just not even realistic, even in a faith standard.
Right. That's right. So those are some of the reasons. Here's a funny headline from the Babylon Bee. It says, the team at PureFlix can't wait for you to settle in with your family, pop some popcorn, and try to power through one of these disasters. PureFlix announces new wave of barely watchable movies. And so it seems to be a consensus, even among Christians like the Babylon Bee, that Christian movies are terrible. Here's from Vox, which is a completely liberal cesspool magazine, asking why are Christian movies so painfully bad. In it, they interview Brian Godawa. You're all familiar with Brian Godawa. He's written a script and he's done a bunch of Christian books and novels. And this article says, but even if Hollywood films do contain embodied messages, they're not always explicitly drawn out as they are in Christian movies. That's because, says Godawa, many evangelical Christians who are people of the good book have come to value words over images. They don't know how to embody their messages in the story, he says. They have to hear the literal words of the gospel. Now, Brian Godawa is not attacking Scripture with that passage, just to be clear. He's not saying that we shouldn't value the Bible over images. What he's talking about is in the context of film, we don't have to put in actual sermons in every movie. We don't have to make a movie where somehow we get the characters into a church so they can hear a pastor preach for 5 or 10 minutes of the ending of the movie. We don't have to have that. We can tell stories for the sake of them just being stories. Most Christian filmmakers wrongly believe that Christian movies should be special revelation, which in fact movies are general revelation. So obviously there's two ways in which God communicates to man: general revelation and special revelation. Special revelation is mighty to save. It's the only way someone can come to a knowledge of Jesus Christ. It's the only way that God uses to convert someone. And here's the thing, movies are not special revelation. Movies are movies. Now we can put sermons in a movie, and sometimes that can be done really well, but your movie is not required to be a sermon. You can just tell a story. How do I know that you can just tell a story and it not be special revelation? Because we have a general revelation. The Bible says in Psalm 19, 1 through 2, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours out speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. So we see in Scripture that there is something to God's art, to God's handiwork, nature in the stars and the sky and the beauty of a sunset that speaks to who God is. It's enough that it can send people to hell. So there is this idea within our art that art can just be art. Our art talks about who God is, or mainly who we think God is, and art captures our sinful views of God, of course, and our right views of God. Now, special revelation, the Bible says in Hebrews 1 through 2, long ago and in many times and in many ways God spoke to our fathers by the prophets, but in these last days he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom also he created the world. So there's a distinction here, and even in this passage, between special revelation and general revelation, but specifically the words of the prophets, the Old Testament, the New Testament, all these things there is something miraculous about Scripture itself, that it can only convert someone's soul through the preaching of the Word. So it's important to keep in mind, if God uses general revelation that doesn't save anybody, but can send people to hell, Christians should think their art can do the same. Now, what I'm not saying is that it is wrong for Christians to make evangelistic messages in their films. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that they do a really terrible job at it. And there are ways it can be done a lot better. So again, Christian films do not have to be evangelistic. Is that just a blank slide? Yeah, it is. So this is let's see. So this is some Facebook comments about PureFlix movies from people who they know PureFlix movies are bad. And just so you know, I'm not speaking as someone who is not familiar with PureFlix. I spent about a year working as the director of video production for the marketing agency that does all of PureFlix's social media ads. So I got very, very familiar with PureFlix, why they make the films they do, got to speak with a lot of the executives almost every single day. So I know about this, but this is how they've sort of conditioned people to think of their movies. One person says, but I happen to love PureFlix, and even if I didn't, I would still support them like supporting a missionary. Much like it takes a missionary a long time to reach the lost, yet we still support them financially. Just to be clear, PureFlix, at least at the time I was, well, actually now for sure, PureFlix is not a nonprofit organization. They are a for-profit company. They are focused on making money, and just recently Sony bought them. So if you think that PureFlix and the way they operate, if they operate as a ministry, that is not true. But they've deceived you into thinking that they are a ministry. Obviously, PureFlix doesn't have the money or the talent that Hollywood does. Just to be clear, Sony, the same Sony that makes the PlayStation 5, the same Sony that distributes television on pretty much every major cable news channel and regular broadcast channel, that same company is the one that just recently bought PureFlix. And even before that, PureFlix was making tons of money. So they don't have the same money or that talent does, Hollywood talent does, but what they do have is something that is much more important to God, purity. Just to be clear, those things aren't exclusive. You can have money and purity at the same time. You can have talent and purity at the same time. It's funny that they categorize these two things as, well, you can have purity, but that means you're not going to get the talent. That's not true at all. Not funny, I don't know what the comment was they're responding to. It says, support Christian films, and they will be able to spend the kind of money. Most people on this thread seem to think they need to. Hollywood sucks. We should not support anything they do. That's true. Hollywood is terrible too. But here's the thing. So think about it. PureFlix is a for-profit business. So let's just take another for-profit business that we would say at least has some Christian ties, Chick-fil-A. Now imagine for a moment, we all like Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is great. They have amazing service. They have amazing food. But let's say, for example, Chick-fil-A started to make some chicken sandwiches that were, they just started to just cut costs, and people started to get food poisoning eating at Chick-fil-A. The food started to taste gross. It was nasty. It wasn't very appealing. Would you say, hey, look, they're a Christian company. They're doing the best that they can. If we want them to make better food, we just have to eat their poisonous food anyway, and eventually they'll turn it around. Like, that's just not how a business works. You know what that is? That's socialism. Socialism says we just have to support these things. We just have to be, just have to be charity. But a business runs by you making a good product in such a way that people want to spend their money for you. That's loving your neighbor. It's not loving your neighbor to go and watch a bad movie just for the sake of watching a bad movie. And it's not loving your neighbor for PureFlix or these Christian film companies to make you think that you have some sort of obligation as a Christian to watch their content. You don't have any more obligation to watch a PureFlix movie or a Christian movie than you do, eating bad food at Chick-fil-A. So, again, Christian films make a lot of money. God's Not Dead was done for, I believe, like maybe less than $10 million. I think maybe the number was about $3 million, if I recall. It got $60 million in the box office. Now, I want you to think about this, right? Because movie making is a business. Okay, if any company can make $57 million off a $3 million investment, they're going to do it. Like, that's great business. The return on your investment is significant. And so we've seen this several times throughout history. Passion of the Christ was $30 million as the budget, which is pretty massive, probably one of the largest Christian movie budgets ever. $30 million, but it got $600 million worldwide in the box office. But what happened? Did Hollywood look at that and go, man, that is great money, we should invest in that? Is that what they did? That's not what they did. What did they do? They blacklisted it. They said the movie was anti-Semitic. It left a bad impression about Jewish people. They blacklisted everybody that worked on the film. Why is that? Why would they reject, was that 20 times? I'm bad at math. Was that 20 times profit? 30 million, 600 million? That's insane. That's an insane number. Why would they reject that? And the reason is because the Hollywood industry and the Christian industry are at a war of worldviews. They want to use and run the film industry so they can proclaim LGBT values, inclusivity, all these other sort of liberal, socialist, Marxist ideals. And if they have to worry about a big budget Christian movie running along the same time as an Avengers film on the same weekend, that's a real problem for them. They don't want to compete with you guys. They want you guys to go see the Avengers movie, but they don't want to have to compete on a fair plane because what they want is your mind. So the idea that Christian movies don't make money is not a true statement at all. What it is it's a lie to keep you happy with or content with what they give you. So Christians believe that films are ministry and they are above criticism. So what I'm about to play for you is a long time ago. I'll tell you a story. My friend John Speed and I, he's one of our founders at Lore.tv. And this is one of the things that, looking back on where we are now with building our company, is one of the things that probably molded us and shaped us into building this company. We were invited to go see a free screening of a Christian movie. I won't say what it is or who the guy is. And we went to go see the movie, and it was absolutely terrible movie. And at the time, we had a website where we were doing movie reviews, and we were writing Christian movie reviews, and we were giving them a fair shake. We were being critical of Christian films. And the reason we were being critical of Christian films is because they're Christian films. We should have higher standards for films that reflect our worldview than we do Hollywood. And so we think it's good when your kid misbehaves, it's good to correct them, right? And same thing with you at work. If you're not doing your job at work, it's good to be corrected so that you can do a better job, so you can improve. Any person worth their salt should be willing to accept criticism, even if the criticism is completely invalid. If the criticism is completely invalid, Christians, we should be able to laugh it off and say that's not true. That's not a legitimate criticism. What we shouldn't do is argue like this guy.
You guys need to repent, man. You need to look inside and repent. We have worked so hard on our films with working with no resources, and people expect us to turn miracles. It's ridiculous how you got, and I don't want you to write a review. Listen, we don't give a bit. If you want to review the movie, you pay in the theater to watch it, and then you review it all you want. But you don't go to a free preview and write a review and shoot the movie down. That is unchristian. And you need to give me John Speed's number. He ought to be man enough to talk to me about this. He needs to talk to me about this, okay? We're going to have a conversation. And I want to see if John knows the Lord. Now, if you love me, you won't write a review, okay? It's wrong. It's wrong. You should have paid to see that movie. Send me $10 if you want to make me happy. You need to get saved, brother. You need to come to the Lord. You got to get on the right side of the game here, okay? Just leave me alone. Don't hurt what we're doing. Don't stand against us. You show me something you've done, okay? I don't even see you in the marketplace, so who the heck are you the expert?
Well, that isn't...
A movie? Wait, Marcus, you can't make a movie.
Well, Roger Ebert wasn't a great filmmaker either, but he was still...
Let's see you and John Speed make a movie.
We did.
Who the heck are you guys? I don't even see it.
Baby's a Murder Year.
Where were you selling it? How many have you sold? 10? It's not even out there. What is your problem, Marcus? Are you a born-again believer? Do you know what it is to believe in Jesus? What is your issue? Tell me.
I don't think it's fair for you to question my faith because I don't like your movie.
Okay. All right. I'm done.
All right,
I hope you take heed to what I said.
All right.
I hope you take heed to the words I said.
So look, here's the thing. We can't have Christian arts be above criticism. We have to embrace that as Christians. We are striving to reflect God as image bearers, and our art should be high and thought of too. Now, and another thing too is, it's just a blog on an internet, right? Like, it's not something that we should get so heated or passionate about. But we can't create this world where Christians can't be art critics or be honest about art critics. We can't give businesses a pass just because they're Christian businesses. It doesn't work in any other business, and it doesn't work in Christian film. So here's sort of the difference between pagan art and Christian art. Pagan arts have great skill. They're done with great skill, but terrible theology. And Christian arts are usually done with, I say usually done, at least with they try to be great at theology, but they're usually done with terrible, incredibly terrible skill. And so this is sort of the difference. But just notice what I didn't say. I didn't say that pagan films don't have theology. They obviously do have theology, and Christians might have theology that's representing our worldview, but it's done with terrible skills. So the other problem, too, is just the shallowness of Christian films. They don't articulate evil the way that Christian films should articulate evil. We, as Christians, actually know what evil is. Now, it is possible to dictate evil without sinning. So I'm not saying that we need to film sex scenes if we're going to show adultery. I'm not saying that at all. Nudity is sin. It's pornography. But what I am saying is we can be realistic in making our content and how we demonstrate and make this content. An example of this, one of the things with like the Christian movie companies like Pureflix is they've identified themselves as sort of movies for the whole family, right? That's sort of what they've done. We're movies for the whole family. But if you go into a Christian bookstore, every book is not for everyone in the family, right? Like you have a marriage section in a Christian bookstore, you have a newlywed section, you have a section for older couples, you have children's and teen sections. If you go into any Christian bookstore, you can see these sort of categories where there are books for children, and there's books for adults, and there's different age groups and stuff like that. And what that allows you to do is that allows you to create content that truly expresses the subject that it talks about. And so when it comes to Christian films, when you say, okay, we're going to make a movie, but an 80-year-old and a 5-year-old have to be able to sit down on the couch and watch this movie together, what you do is you just dilute everything and you make a shallow Hallmark film kind of thing. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. You have to make movies for the audience. That's basic marketing too. If you're going to make a product, you have to know who that product is intended for, and you can't just make a product that's supposedly intended for everybody. You have to market that and find your niche and find your audience first. And so that's sort of one of the things that gives us this real shallow sort of, one of you guys said that sin is portrayed unrealistically. Well, that's why, because the 80-year-old and the 5-year-old have to sit together on the same couch and watch it. And there can't be a single moment where, the grandma has to cover the kid's eyes, or that there's something that the kid enjoys that the grandma wouldn't. So you just get this real milquetoast sort of thing. Now, this is our one of our co-founders, Jason Farley. Jason Farley is our Director of Artists and Repertoire, is what his title is at Lore.tv. He speaks to a bunch of filmmakers throughout the country, and he develops relationships with them. And he's also a screenwriter and a filmmaker, and he's done deals with Netflix and stuff. He's working with us, and this is what we're going to watch a few clips of him, but this is him talking about the shallowness of Christian films.
We go to make a movie or write a Christian movie, and we think, okay, well, I have to protect my audience from these temptations. And so if I show them real sin, they might be tempted to some sort of sin. Or what if I tell a story with real sin in it, and a little kid walks by and sees the movie that I made, and then that's my responsibility. I've caused him to stumble. But the reality is that's not the filmmaker's job. That's a dad's job to protect their kids. A filmmaker's job is to tell the story that they are telling as best as they can, in as true a way as they can, in as beautiful a way as they can, and as good a way as they can. And it's a dad's job to protect his family and to make sure that the right stories for his kids are seen at the right ages.
Fathers are the best filter.
Right, exactly.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so fathers are the best filters. Parents who might be listening to this talk, it is your job to be the filter, not a technology company. It is your job to know what it is your child should and should not watch. And we can't just abandon our job to technology. The other thing is Christian movies should encompass all the genres and not be a single genre. This is the problem right now. Every single Christian movie looks and feels and smells and tastes like a Christian movie, right? It all has that sort of Hallmark movie sappiness to it that you actually really don't like. And I know it's true. Every time you see the trailer, you're like, oh no, I hope we don't have to go as a church group and watch that movie. Because they all have that same feel. They all have that same style. Where are the Christian horror films? Where are the purely Christian comedies that are legitimate comedies? All of these things, even if there is a Christian horror film or a Christian comedy, it's still done in the style of a Christian movie. That is a movie and a style, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, even if it's hard to describe. You know exactly what a Christian movie is when you see it. And that's on purpose. That is the market that they've carved out, and they do it on purpose. Here's an example as to why they do it. Country music. How many of you guys know that country music and Christian music kind of started like right together at the same time, right? If you go to Nashville, to the Country Music Hall of Fame, the very first exhibit they have when you walk in there is a collection of old hymn books, because that's where country music got its origins, right? What happened is, as Christian music, country music sort of got real popular, real mainstream, became a massive business. They had a problem because they had country stars who were singing about beer and girls and trucks and stuff like that, and it was kind of discouraging to the Christian audience, right? It was kind of discouraging to the Christian audience. They were getting complaints from Christians, and So what they did was Nashville took the Christian music industry, they carved out a sound, they carved out a style, they carved out, they even used a term, this is a term they use in Christian radio, by the way, this is behind the scenes stuff, but they call it JPMs, which means Jesus per minute, to make sure the song doesn't have too much Jesus per minute and it doesn't have too little Jesus per minute. It has to be like right in this weird line. So they do this, the reason they do this is because they don't want Christian music to compete with country music. So what happened was country music went and took this Christian niche and they defined what Christian music is, and they moved 30 miles south of Nashville to Franklin, Tennessee, which is the Christian music capital of the world right now. So that is why we have a Christian music sound. You know what Christian music sounds like. They have the certain chords, and the same is true for the film industry, but it didn't always used to be that way.
Dracula was supposed to be an embodiment of what happens if all of the things that normally limit our lusts are taken away. And you're supposed to read those stories and then say, oh yeah, I need more of those limitations on my lust in my life. Those are good things. Zombies were invented by a Christian who saw the way the world was becoming more and more materialistic. That's why the first zombie movies are set in malls, because he's saying, look what we become when we think only about our body, only about fulfilling the needs of our body and no longer about our souls. A zombie is a soulless body. Christian writers come up with these thoughts and these ideas, or used to. Now, Christians get relegated into their own genre, but Christian movies are not a genre. Christians should be telling movies in all the genres.
So that's really interesting to think about how even some of the genres that the secular world is used for was at least encompassed or started by, at the very least, a Christian worldview from directors and writers who actually had some idea. It doesn't necessarily mean they were salvific, but they were pretty closely tied to a Christian worldview, and they were able to argue for what they were doing based on a Christian ethic. So the other thing with when we talk about general revelation, movies being general revelation as opposed to special revelation, Christian movies should be propaganda. They should be subtle in the sense of what we're trying to do is we're trying to enter into the pagans' minds and start teaching them morality. Here's the reason for this. Liberals are really good at using stories to create laws. But conservatives, we like to argue statistics and facts. We don't really have a way to convert. We don't make really good movies about the wickedness of abortion. And we had Unplanned, right? We had that one. And then even then, they were shocked and surprised that movie got an R rating. And I was like, well, shouldn't it have got an R rating all along? Like, it's a movie about abortion, and they shouldn't have been upset about that. So these are the sort of things, like we need to use Christian movies as a way to enter into the worldviews of the unbelievers without them realizing what they're watching, because they do the same thing for us. But here's a good example. Here's Jason explaining that.
Well, and C.S. Lewis says that a well-told story sneaks past the watchful dragons that normally keep the truth away, right? And if you've got a story like Holes that you don't think of, oh, that's a Christian movie, but it's really the working out of a doctrine of atonement, right? Where you've got a first Stanley Yelnats and a second Stanley Yelnats, that the first one fails and the second one is given the opportunity to undo the curse that's on his family. Those are Christian stories. And but it sneaks past the watchful dragons of Hollywood because it's so well told. They don't say, oh, well, we can't have that. They say, I need that. We need that story because it's well told. But we all have the watchful dragons, that sit just outside the left ventricle of our heart, trying to keep the truth away.
We have watchful dragons within the Christian industry.
Right, and within the Christian industry.
So within
everywhere
the Christian
you look.
industry. Yeah, so sneaking past the watchful dragons, there's a reason why Lord of the Rings does so well. There's a reason why C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia does so well. The good story makes unbelievers a fan of it. And so there's a way that you can use stories as a way to gain the attention and to take the money away from the pagans. You can tell good stories and you can take their money, and then you can use that money to advance the kingdom in more strategic ways. So the question is, well, Christian movies should not imitate the world, but we should be pioneers of innovative art. If you look at Christian movies, how many of you guys have seen a Christian movie on YouTube? You can see the trailer and you go, oh, that's just a copy of another movie that the world has done, right? There's always like this. I kid you not. I was looking this up, and there was an actual movie made. I can't think of the name, but I'm sure somebody here knows it. Oh, it's called Old Fashioned, and it's literally marketed as the Christian version of 50 Shades of Grey. This is true. It is obviously a Christian movie in the sense that it's not about what 50 Shades of Grey is about. This is about courtship and the complete opposite man who doesn't want to kiss before marriage and stuff like that. And he's mocked, of course, and ridiculed. But they're advertising and promoting, this is the Christian version of 50 Shades of Grey. We don't need Christian versions. We can define our own terms, and we need to have the world, the secular world, copy us because our art is so great. Like, that is what they should do. And then you have pagans who are having to copy Christian art because it's all the rage. So the question is, how do we fix Christian movies? How do we make them better? You know, I said in the beginning that Christian movies will never win Oscars, and I still believe that because I believe that if Christian movies are done well, the Oscars will reject them, but they'll still make so much money that the Oscars will be at a loss for not talking or promoting it. So how do we fix Christian movies? Well, the first thing is lore.tv, and you can do that. You can sign up at lore.tv, and we can send you an email when we're about to launch. I'm about to show you a preview of some of the stuff we're going to have on Lore TV in a minute. How is specifically, what I'm going to tell you is how Lore TV is going to help fix Christian movies. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to decentralize Hollywood. I talked about decentralization this week, the importance of that. And one of the ways Lore TV is going to decentralize Hollywood is we're going to take the power out of the studio executives' hands to make a movie. Right now, if you have a Netflix subscription or a Disney Plus subscription, you pay them $10 or $20 a month or whatever, and they take a percentage of that money and they go and say, okay, now that we got all these Christians' money, we're going to go and make a movie about LGBT, even though they don't want to see it, but they're still going to subscribe to us anyway. So you have executives who are making the decisions about what you will watch. And so one of the things we're going to do is when you sign up with a subscription to Lore.tv, you'll be able to actually take a percentage of your subscription and spend it on the content you want to see made directly. So without the studio executives making those decisions for you, the projects that get funded, and you get to watch in addition to the content library, and the projects that don't get funded don't get funded. So it creates sort of a free market economy on the platform. This is important because here's some of the Oscar requirements for nomination that they just put out. If you want to get nominated for an Oscar, the main storyline / subject matter, the main storyline, theme, or narrative of the film is centered on an underrepresented group, women, racial or ethnic group, LGBTQ, people with cognitive or physical disabilities, or who are deaf or hard of hearing. Notice that Christianity is not one of those groups that qualifies for an Oscar nomination. So look, if you want to be a filmmaker and you want the respect and praise of the Hollywood industry, you want to go to the Academy, and you want to be nominated for an Oscar, you have to make a movie that represents one of these groups. You can go online and you can read all their requirements, but it's all social justice. A certain percentage of your crew has to be a certain racial mix-up. Remember now, it's not based on talent. It's just about meeting these requirements. The other thing is, what was that other thing? It just slipped my head. Oh, the other thing is too with if you work within the Hollywood industry, the problem is you have to work within the union system. The union system is a terrible system in any industry. To be at the mercy of a union causes all your prices to go up. It makes films way more expensive. You wonder why films are $50 to $100 million. A lot of that is stupid union rules. It's really, really, really absurd. For example, if you're flying into LA and you're flying your crew into LA, you're flying your actors into LA, as soon as they hit, as soon as the wheels land at the airport, the union requires that they be on the clock. But then you have the actors and actresses and the crew members stuck in traffic for 3 or 4 hours because it's LA, and you're paying, directors are saying they're paying literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of a movie budget just for actors and actresses to be sitting in traffic. So these are some of the problems with unions. If we can create a system that allows for independent filmmakers and independent consumers to be able to just work out the projects and the budget they want among themselves, we completely remove the union system from Hollywood. So the other thing that Lord plans to do is we plan to protect artists. That's huge now. What do we see now? We see cancel culture. Here's Gina Carano and Kanye West, of course, all been canceled supposedly from their industry. Gina was fired and then went and got a job at Daily Wire working with their film division immediately. She was fired from Disney. It's funny because she was like one of the few women on The Mandalorian, and they fired her, which seems like they have a diversity problem now when they did that. So one of the things we want to do is we want to tell you as an artist, as a filmmaker, if you come and sign up on Lore.tv, you will be protected. This is very important, and the churches need to do this too. This is so essential. We need to stand up for those in our community who are standing up for righteousness, who are being bold, who are being brave, and we need to be brave alongside of them. What we see now is this culture, this cancel culture mentality that says if you make a strong stand, we're going to be weak and cave to the mob. That's what's happening now. And so one of the things we want to do is we want to protect artists, and we want to let artists know that they can make whatever they want on our platform, except for nudity, of course. But anyway, so the other thing we want to do is we want to protect employees. This is important for anybody out there that think when they get older they want to run their own business. There's a few people out there, right? So those that want to run your own company, you want to run your own business, we need Christians who are building businesses that'll say, we will protect our employees from the cancel culture. We will not cave. We will not fire our employees because they said something Christian on Twitter. We will not do that. And this is how you bring in some of the best people in the world, because I will tell you, we have spoken to many artists and employees within many secular industries, whether it's Silicon Valley or the Christian film industry, and they're terrified. And when you have employees that are terrified, what happens? They find another job. And so if you want the best employees, you need to protect them. So we plan to do that. And finally, we want to let artists be free. The Bible, Francis Schaeffer says, the Christian is the one whose imagination should fly beyond the stars. This is Francis Schaeffer from his book, Art in the Bible. We want to create a place where Christians can make controversial, edgy content that glorifies God and His worldview in a way that's not necessarily preaching, but hits on hard-hitting subjects and shows the wickedness of sin. What do films that really show the wickedness of transgender surgery? What do those films look like? PureFlix isn't going to show those kind of movies, right? The mainstream Christian movie industry isn't going to show those kind of movies. What about movies about abortion? What I have for you, this is a video by one of our first content creators, Laura Clausen. Have any of you guys heard of Laura Clausen from Choice for Two? You should get to know her. She is a brilliant producer, and this is one of her abortion films, short abortion films that she just made. She actually just released this this week. She's making a series of 5 to 6 animated cartoons, each on a separate controversial issue dealing with abortion. But this is one she made this week.
So you're pregnant. You didn't plan this. You didn't want it. And now you have a choice to make. Take a breath. You can do this. I'm going to be real with you, though. The choices that our society and the media are going to present you with, they're not all equal. Right now, your baby's heart is already beating. That started about 21 days after conception. We're talking about another human being here, and not just any human being. Your baby. For whatever reason, this baby was given to you. You were chosen to be this child's mother. And no matter what's going on in your life, you can rise up and take this on. You can rock this. But right now, abortion is probably going to be suggested, even pushed on you by the people closest to you. They'll tell you it's your best option. They'll tell you to think of your future. They'll say you're not old enough, not young enough, not experienced enough, not financially stable enough, not educated enough. They might even threaten you. The thing is, you're already this baby's mother. This child is already here in the world, living and growing inside you. And what these people are suggesting to you is that you murder your own baby. And yeah, that sounds harsh, but I'm not going to lie to you. Not when your baby's life is on the line. You're the only one who can protect this child. You. But you're not alone. Not by a long shot. Fight for your baby. And reach out for help if you need it. We'll help you. Choose your baby. You've got what it takes. And you won't regret it.
Isn't that awesome? So all that to say is there are a lot of talented Christian artists out there that have the ability to make amazing content, but their content is too good for the Christian film industry. In fact, actually this video, and actually Laura Clausen's video in general, is too good for the pro-life industry. They don't like her. If you notice, there was one word in there. It says, "Don't murder your baby." That's enough. The pro-life industry, they hate that word. They would never want to say a woman is murdering her child. She is, after all, victim, like everybody in our society. So that is obviously rejected. So there's really great, brilliant filmmakers. By the way, there were Disney animators that made that, by the way. They're former Disney animators. So there's Disney animators. There's all sorts of animators in the film industry. They're just looking for a place to run to because they're worried they're going to get fired if they call someone gender number 3 when they should have called them gender number 4, right? Like, this is the world they're living in, and they're like, I want to drive an Uber, and there's something inside of me that says God did not make you to drive an Uber. He made you to tell stories like that, and we as Christians have a responsibility, and I believe an obligation to create these platforms where people can live and make a living off of the skills that God has, the skills and intelligence that God has given them. I think that's very important. And the other thing is, we need to believe that we have a God that can help us defeat giants. What we're doing at Lore, we do not have a goal to go and compete with the Christian film industry. We want to create a business and a company that can compete with Netflix and can upend and decentralize and destabilize the entire Hollywood industry. And we believe that this model that we're working on can do that, but we have to know exactly the kind of content we're looking to make and open up and give freedom to artists to be able to make whatever we want. The Bible says in 1 Samuel, it says, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" This was David speaking to Goliath. I believe there is a practical aspect of that. God wants us to fight his enemies, and he does not like cowardice. And so I believe that should God allow us to, we can defeat Hollywood. We are not their slaves. They do not own us, and we have a better worldview, and we can do we can tell way better stories than Hollywood could ever dream of. We just need to build those sort of places and believe that it's possible that we have a God that can defeat even the biggest giants like the mainstream media. And so again, if you guys visit lore.tv, you can sign up for email updates about our launch, and you can put your email there, and we'll let you know when we launch. We hope to launch towards the end of the summer. So thank you guys, and it's been a great week. Oh, real quick, before we go, can I get I know this is weird, can I get a selfie of for my Facebook page? All right, I do this every year, by the way. This isn't the first time. This is every time I come here to speak. Hi, everybody. Hello. Thank you. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for having me speak.
Sit, take a seat. Coming on. Did anyone leave their Bible? Is this anyone's Bible?